On today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show where Nick Fairbanks will be joining me to discuss the 6-2 win over the Montreal Canadiens, where the Florida Panthers dealt with a little adversity, losing Sergei Bobrovsky 2 minutes into the game and Alex Lyon coming in the rest of the way, and losing Eric Staal in this one as well. Lots of power play goals in this one, 4 of them in the second period, and it got a little chippy in the third period. We're going to also talk about all-star selection. Will somebody be joining Matthew Tkachuk in Sunrise, Florida for the all-star festivities? And we're going to talk about a topic bigger than the sport of hockey after everything that happened Tuesday night in Philadelphia. All on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, January 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at Monoman12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects with Heidi Halakash. And don't forget to send in your screenshot of your subscription to the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube page and your 5-star rating on whichever podcast app you listen to Locked On Panthers, and send it over to me via DM at LO_FLA Panthers or my personal account at Monoman12, or email it at lockedonflapanthers@gmail.com for your chance to win 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers versus Tampa Bay Lightning game on February 6th. Good luck, everybody. So, Florida Panthers fans, it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. The Florida Panthers are coming off a 6-2 victory over the Montreal Canadiens. Right before we get into that game, Paul Maurice was fined $25,000 for his comments on officiating on Tuesday night based on everything that happened. But Cats fans, Francois St. Laurent was not refereeing this game for the Panthers versus the Montreal Canadiens. And wow, what a game for the Panthers to just, after no goals in the first period and just the explosion of goals, especially on the power play. And this will be a great time to bring in my guest on the show. Once again, it's a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. Nick, welcome back to Locked On Panthers.
Thank you for having me back, Armando. It's always great to have a victory Fairbanks Friday. Makes the show go a lot easier, much better to talk about topics, and just better overall feeling, feeling emotions, things like that.
Absolutely. Now the Florida Panthers have won 4 of their last 6, 9 points out of a possible 12. Money Puck has their odds going from 23% on January 8th to 54%. Just saw it this morning. We're recording this on a Friday morning. Right now it's 9:45 a.m. as I'm looking at the time on my laptop. And let's talk about last night's game, Nick. Of course, the Florida Panthers deal with some adversity early with Josh Anderson's shot that hits the post and looks like that Bobrovsky stretched his leg to the point that he got hurt. And then after an offensive zone penalty by Atulus Turenin, Alex Lyon had to come in. And of course, Spencer Knight is on injured reserve. And then this happens for the Panthers. Not gonna lie, even if it was the Montreal Canadiens and of course they're going through a rebuild right now, I got a little nervous with this. Of course, Alex Lyon being a Calder Cup champion from last season with the Chicago Wolves, and only 25 games of experience, two games last season for Carolina. How are you feeling when Alex Lyon came in the game?
So, first thing I want to start off with is when I was watching, the replay of the game, is I guess when I saw Bob stretch, I'm not sure if he injured his left leg, the one that was stretching all the way over that hit the post, or if it was the leg that he was pushing off on. Because when you see him after get up, he's shaking his right leg, the one that he pushed off on. But I can definitely see if it was the left one because that was the one he was stretching out and got caught on the post. So I don't know if you can clarify that for me, if they actually said which one, or if they're just leaving it as a lower body injury.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't specify. They did. They're usually the broadcast. They're the broadcast that works directly with the Panthers. They're the ones that least speculate it of all people. That's mostly for us to do for when it comes to that. But I think it was mostly the leg that pushed off for
Okay,
Bobrovsky, and so it was a little
that's more
nerve wracking.
concerning.
Yeah, and look,
Okay.
Alex Lyon was tested literally right away off Cole Caulfield, like right on the power play. Cole Caulfield almost has 30 goals for the Canadiens. What a pick! He was 15th overall, and a pick going all the way there, and he's
Hmm.
almost a 30 goal scorer. And also, the Florida Panthers dealt with another loss early for them, where Eric Staal thought he was interfered right at the blue line, which I don't agree with Eric Staal on that one. I did not think he was interfered, but there was one that I did think and Staal, and then he unnecessarily just takes a hit at him where he was way away from the puck, not called as well, and Eric Staal has to go to the locker room the rest of the game. So now you're down a goalie and one of your bottom six forwards as well. So it was just a little adversity that the Panthers had to face there.
Definitely. And, what better to rally the team around? You lose your hot goaltender because Bob is one of the main reasons why they've been able to jumpstart, the middle of their season. He's played fantastic. And when you lose that type of, mentality that the team has to trust in him back there, and now you have, Calder winning, backup goalie or third string goalie come in. He looked like Beezer to me last night. That was ridiculous. I honestly haven't seen Bob or Knight make those type of saves. Not that they've really had to, or they could have gotten beat by him. But he came in and did his job very well, and I'm very happy for him. Now the Eric Staal one, I'm one of those people that don't want to think that Mike Matheson is dirty. I think he's just a victim of circumstance. Also, he might have a temper. I think he might make decisions based on, if he's frustrated or maybe he's just feeling pressured. We can go back to the Elias Peterson situation that he had when he was a Florida Panther, where he basically just kind of, you know, tackled him and threw him to the ice. And now you have this hit that was not warranted at all. It was clearly interference, and it should have been a penalty. I don't understand, what refs are looking at or what they're trying to do. I understand trying to let the guys play, but at the same time, they're supposed to be protecting the players. And unfortunately, we did lose two players, but it did work out for the team because in the second period, they did come out and they put the hurt on the Montreal Canadiens.
Yep, and with the Florida Panthers, when it was 0-0, 18 of the 18 shots of theirs were either blocked or missed the net in the first period, and just thinking, oh no, here we go.
Yep.
The Panthers play possibly playing down to their competition, and it really started with being right in front of the net off a rebound. Sam Reinhart scores for the Panthers, and Sam Montembeault, former Panther, another former Panther. The Habs have so many former Panthers on their team. Mike Hoffman, Evgeny Dadonov, as well. And how big was that challenge? I think that challenge was really big because of the fact that it was the first goal of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad the referees used judgment to think as we're thinking of it, as we didn't think that regardless of whether Tkachuk in the blue paint would have actually interfered Montembeault or not. I didn't think Montembeault was getting back into the net, and I'm glad that maybe that was something that was considered when it came to the goal counting or not. And it was a risk that was worth taking for Marty St. Louis. I think if it was on the Panther side, I think that's a risk worth taking because he's right there in the blue paint. But I think they used the fact that he wasn't going to get back in time, and also that opened the floodgates for that second goal, where they got a bench minor in that one, and Forsling got a deflection to Sam Bennett as well for the second goal, and that was just the beginning of the floodgates.
Of course, and we've seen it on the opposite side for the Florida Panthers where, there's a goal that's either called off or that, there's a goal that's, confirmed. And, it just seems like the wheels fall off because, they feel like they've been the better team for most of it. And a lot of the games they can say that, but then just one thing goes wrong or goes against their way. And it just seems like the train, just falls off the rails. So, you know, I'm glad that, the refs kind of got this one right, as you said, that Montembeault was not going to be able to get back in the net. That Tkachuk was not the reason for him being able to not be able to play the puck. So it was a good judgment call.
Yeah, and of course, the Panthers lived in the slot all night. After the second period, the slot shots were 9-7. Of course, the Montreal Canadiens had 3 bench minors in this one where they had too many men on the ice calls. One of them when they were already down 4-on-3. I made a little bit of a joke that with the Montreal Canadiens having too many men on the ice calls in less than 2 minutes, that they're the unofficial sponsor of the Too Many Men podcast. So and then of course the one of those, of course, with Matthew Tkachuk off a rebound for the third goal, and then Giovanni Smith getting his first as a Panther, and then another power play goal where Matthew Tkachuk just walks in and nails a wrister past Sam Montembeault. And he was an assist away from a Gordie Howe hat trick on the night. He got two goals, and he got into a fight after going after Mike Matheson. But that's a good way to transition to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss really that third period and just the frustration that the Panthers continued to put on the Montreal Canadiens. But first, we're going to tell you all about Built Bar. And if you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want to all the fat and calories, then you got to try Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. Even if you're like me, you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, man, then I've got the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious, you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They come in unbelievably flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut, almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they're healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar and a whopping 17 grams of protein. Head to your nearest Walmart today and walk into the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. Second segment here on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers are coming off a 6-2 victory over the Montreal Canadiens behind 4 power play goals for the Panthers. Not even in their President's Trophy season, Nick, that the Panthers got 4 power play goals. And the fact that was really what opened the floodgates for the Panthers. We knew that going into the third period, it was just really about continuing the good habits, not allowing Montreal to get back in this game. Alex Lyon was 16 of 16 through the first 38 minutes right before the third period, and then of course the frustration happened. Arbor Jacki and Giovanni Smith right towards the end of the second period were getting into it, and of course they go to the box for fighting, and they went at it a second time. We mentioned earlier of Matthew Tkachuk going after Mike Matheson, former Panther, as well, after that hit on Eric Staal. And just when you think about this season for Matthew Tkachuk and just the standing up for his teammates, we saw it against Nico Hischier of the New Jersey Devils after everything that happened with Sasha Barkov, and then this one on Eric Staal. It's still such a big treat for knowing that he's going to stand up for his teammates.
It is. And, it depends on, it calls into question, what individuals would think a captain or what leadership looks like. And leadership takes up different forms, and Alexander Barkov is one of those quiet leaders and everything, and he's going to try and lead by example and be that quiet leader that when he speaks everybody listens. So Matthew Tkachuk is much more of an animated, physical, outspoken player. I would definitely say that more people are going to rally around that. But at the same time, that also has a double-edged sword. We've seen it where Tkachuk has gotten into some things earlier this season that maybe he shouldn't have, or maybe it would have been better off if he had like held back or had somebody else do it because the Panthers needed him in those key situations. But can't say enough about him. He's been the Panthers' best player this season, most consistent player, and I can't help but notice that if you go to the Calgary Twitter page or if you go to any of their fans' Twitter pages, they're not happy right now. So I'm very happy with the trade still. And it just keeps getting better and better every week. And hopefully over the course of next 8 years, that will prove to be the catalyst or one of the catalysts to raising the cup here in South Florida.
Absolutely. And 24 years old, still doing this and still on pace for a 100 point season. And that wasn't the only frustration for the Montreal Canadiens. David Savard and Mark Staal have roughing penalties, and Savard has a 10-minute misconduct there. Another one is Ryan Lomberg going after Pizzetta after a hit on Lundell near the end boards as well. And of course, Ryan Lomberg also got on the score sheet as well. Forgot to mention that after aggressive forechecking for the Panthers. And then you see Ryan Lomberg just calling Carter Verhaeghe to just give it to me. I'm drawing towards the net. And then and that was at the time where the Montreal Canadiens, it was 5-2. The game wasn't necessarily in reach, but you definitely put that in doubt for the Canadiens there as well. So that was another thing for the Panthers, and just trying to put this out of the way. And also, second straight game that the Florida Panthers chase a goalie. I know it came in a loss on Tuesday against Ilya Samsonov and the Maple Leafs when he came in after Matt Murray gave up 4 goals, but we saw this so much last year where the Panthers were chasing goalies. I think it was like almost 15 times last season. I know it was over 10, but second straight game when you chase a goaltender, it's just like bringing it a little back from last season. Caden Primo comes into the game because Jake Allen is hurt at the time. Sam Montembeault was starting 6 straight games for the Canadiens as well, but struggling big time with rebound control as well. And look at this, Nick. 18 of Florida's 40 shots were on the power play. Montreal, 11 of their 25 shots were not on 5-on-5. And only 35 minutes and 17 seconds of this game were spent on 5-on-5.
There's a lot of penalty minutes. I think this is the game of the season as far as, the most penalty minutes, if I was reading that correctly. So not a lot of love lost between these two teams. One team's really feeling it. The other one's still trying to figure it out. And, if they're going to, tank for better or not. So we'll see. I think we see them maybe one more time this season. About 2 more times. Thank you. And we'll see what happens. I mean, games really don't carry over from game to game, but, people do remember. And I'm glad, going back to the Tkachuk point, that he took care of it this game instead of waiting till the next game, because that was usually the Panthers' MO, is that, one of our guys got knocked out because of a hit or whatever. Panthers wouldn't do anything. They would focus on this game right now. And, depending on what the result was, they would wait till the next game to take care of business. But, the Panthers are really feeling it right now. The fact that they chased the second goalie in the second game, but let's be honest, they were playing more than just the Maple Leafs in the last game. Let's just be clear about that. So,
yes.
Samsonov really did come in. He did give the Maple Leafs a boost and everything, but Florida had their chances and everything. But on the flip side, if you take that Toronto game to this one, Florida had 8 power plays this one. So I don't want to think that it's, reciprocal or, like it just totally switched. It like phantom calls were being made, but Florida definitely deserved to have those power plays, and it was really nice to see them being able to convert on that.
Yeah, now with season averages for the power play, they're almost into the top 10 right now. They're 13th ranked power play in the NHL, and it's starting to get hot. Of course, the penalty kill is still a concern. They're still middle of the pack in it, but the Panthers, they 13 goals in 2 matchups against the Canadiens. Of course, the first game after the Christmas break, you get your reinforcements back as far as when it comes to injuries as well. And really, for like I said, 4 out of their last 6, 9 out of their 9 points out of a possible 12. And I tuned into the last 2 minutes of Islanders Sabres on Ryan Miller night in Buffalo, where even though it went to overtime, it benefited more that the Buffalo Sabres won over the New York Islanders because you face them 2 more times, while the Islanders, you face them 0 times left in the remainder of the season.
And when you're chasing points, you always want the team that's below you to win or to gain points instead of the person that's in front of you, because it's much easier to probably stave off a team that's under you than to try and catch a team that's ahead of you. So glad that Buffalo's showing up after we played them. We'll see, what happens in those next 2 matchups. I think Buffalo may play a better game against Florida because now they're trying to feel it and they have a few games in hand. And if they start rattling off a couple of their wins, they might be a team to look out for.
Yeah. And speaking of going back to the Canadiens, the next time the Florida Panthers play the Canadiens won't be until March. They face twice in March. And the next time the Panthers play the Sabres, those both times will be at home, February 24th and then April 4th, both times at FLA Live Arena, while the Florida Panthers face the Canadiens once in South Florida and then once in at the Bell Center, where, hey, we wish that they could play the Habs every game of the season, but that's just not how it works. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to talk about the All-Star game and if there is an additional Panther added to the roster. And we're also going to talk about something that happened on Tuesday night in Philadelphia and something that's been talked about across the league. And of course, we want to give our opinions on it as well. We're going to discuss this next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Third and final segment here on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers come off a 6-2 win over the Montreal Canadiens behind 4 power play goals and losing Sergei Bobrovsky and Eric Staal, but still finding a way to get a dub and a 5 points out of 6 on this 3-game road trip right before the Florida Panthers welcome Kirill Kaprizov and Minnesota Wild. Just another 1 game before going on the road once again. So road heavy schedule for the Cats this month. And Nick, Matthew Tkachuk is going to be the only All-Star for the Panthers. Alexander Barkov, nor Carter Verhaeghe were the last ones in. Austin Matthews, David Pastrnak, and Andrei Vasilevsky were the players selected for the Atlantic Division. But we also got the uniform unveiling. And of course, Matthew Tkachuk in a video, him and Jason Robertson, in a video of them wearing their All-Star game jerseys for February 3rd and 4th here in Sunrise, Florida. And I want to get your thoughts first on a Panther not joining Matthew Tkachuk, but also about the uniforms. I'll give my opinion first.
Okay.
I'm not the biggest fan of it based on the font, but I also like the old school orange NHL logo at the same time. But I also like that it's like kind of like Miami Vice-ish. But also when people talk about Sunrise, what grinds my gears is when I consistently hear South Beach. And I think that's going to be a conversation point for national people consistently talking about the All-Star game. And that's kind of why I'm kind of iffy about the Miami Vice colors when it comes to the jerseys.
Yeah, so the first point is that I think the All-Star or the fans made the right decision in making Matthew Tkachuk the only Florida Panther representative. Now, do I think that there's another Panther that possibly deserved to be on there? Yeah, I think there's one other player this season, and that's Brandon Montour. I just don't think Florida started the season very well. I don't think that anybody really deserves to be on there. And I think all the other players who were, selected or made it are more star power, more, bringing more fans to the event or wanting to watch it. Because I'll tell you this: would you rather want to watch an All-Star game with Brandon Montour or like, Matthews?
The answer is obvious. I know I'm a Panthers fan, but Austin Matthews, a 60 goal
Yeah,
scorer.
and I don't mean to compare the two, obviously. I mean, they play totally different positions and everything. And, one has like an elite skill level, that, he leads his team for a reason. But, Florida has Tkachuk. He's been basically their star, their icon and everything. And, when he unveiled the Eastern jersey, I was elated to see that they had that throwback, kind of like in a way, a reverse retro of what they had before. And the NHL kind of going with the whole Miami Vice thing, kind of like what you're saying with South Beach. Um, I don't know how the NHL or how sports media is supposed to, I guess, prop up Sunrise, Florida without
Fair.
having like other markers next to them. Like, we're going to talk about Fort Lauderdale. We're going to talk about Boca. Probably not. We're going to talk about Miami because that is like the hub of a lot of things. So I can understand wanting to steal the branding from that, which makes sense. But at the same time, it's I think the Florida Panthers are probably in the next couple of years because I think, if you talk about their stadium lease, which, a lot of Canadians will want to talk about, that they shouldn't have a team here and move them up to Quebec. But you have to wonder if they're going to continue playing at the FL Live Arena here in the next couple of seasons, or if they are going to relocate to a stadium in the other part of South Florida. They had that practice facility that they're making over in Fort Lauderdale. Not saying that they're going to build another building, but there might be something in Miami that they could get into. But I was very happy to see the jerseys, and I wonder, what they're going to look like on the ice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the events for All-Star Weekend have been announced. There's going to be a Fort Lauderdale beach sweep on the 29th. There's going to be a City of Sunrise and Florida Panthers hockey festival on the 31st as well. There's going to be the alumni game in Coral Springs on February 1st. This was announced by the Panthers PR department just yesterday as well. And so along with the skills competition and the All-Star game, of course, happening at FLA Live Arena. So those are the following events for that. And of course, the location doesn't help. It's the elephant in the room. And of course, 2028 is not necessarily the year to decide, because you got to decide before the lease is up of what you're going to do. Are you going to extend it, or are you going to build something new? And of course, Brandon Montour, speaking of Brandon Montour, since you mentioned him, now a career high in points. So what a season Brandon Montour is having for the Cats as well. And of course, Austin Matthews, of course, he's a more marketable name for in the NHL, and of course, better at his position at forward than Montour is for defense. Nothing against Money Montour. And this, I don't know how else to transition to this on this final thing that we're going to talk about. And full disclosure, Wednesday before Jacob and I recorded our show, Jacob asked me if I wanted to talk about Ivan Proverov, everything that happened with the Philadelphia Flyers. And at the time I said, I don't have all the information. It was still very fresh. And let me take a few days to dissect everything and know everything that went on there. So for those of you guys who don't know, the Philadelphia Flyers held their Pride Night on Tuesday night, and Ivan Provorov did not go on the ice for warmups. And it's because his reasoning was because he did not want to wear the Pride Night jerseys. And his reasoning was him being Russian Orthodox and saying that he respects the choices of the people in the LGBTQ plus community. But I think of it as, even if you don't want to wear the jerseys, it's a requirement to be in warmups. So I think if you don't show up in warmups, regardless of whether you want to wear that or not, you should be scratched. And I also think of it, Nick, as even though he's not physically doing any harm nor saying words to offend people of that community, that the people that put the work in to put that night together, it was all taken away from Ivan Provorov not doing something that helps welcome people of the LGBTQ community, and it hurts them, and it enables societal behaviors as well, even if his intention isn't to do so. I want to get your thoughts on this.
So I'll start off by saying that, everybody is free to believe and to act. Well, I wouldn't say act, but they're free to believe what they want, and they're allowed to, it seems, act on those beliefs because somebody tells them that it's okay, or that it's perfectly acceptable, because you have two schools of thought here. Okay, so you have the religious spot, and then you have a community that wants to be more included in things, to be taken seriously, and they're just going to butt heads all the time. And each community can express themselves how they want to, but both sides are not they're not outside of being judged for those decisions that they make. Do I agree with what Provorov did? No. But at the same time, would I be somebody who would be at the, not okay with like somebody like Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, because he was taking a knee to, show that he was not okay with police brutality and everything. And, it's just, people show their ways of protest in different ways, and it's usually not the most popular. And, the way that Provorov did it, very effective, to be honest. As you said, he took away the message from that Pride Night for the Philadelphia Flyers, and also from the NHL. But it also shows that there's still a lot of growing that needs to happen on both sides.
Yes.
Whether religious people want to continue to use, old teachings, to further their dialogue on a situation, or if they want to continue to pick and choose what they want to believe in and what they've been told. And then on the other side of the coin, maybe validation needs to come from within, instead of asking for it or wanting to get it from other people all the time. Because you know what? I'm somebody who accepts everybody as they are. It doesn't matter, where you come from, who you are, who you love, and everything like that. But, there are some people that are kind of turned off by that kind of thing. Like, hey, why do I need to validate you? Well, we come from a history where people who, live that type of lifestyle, I mean, whether it's sex, race, creed, whatever, always have issues. They're always, there's always, they have a much harder time getting, integrated into society. And this is what the NHL and this is what the Philadelphia Flyers try to do, is try to be more inclusive and try to bring them in like, hey, listen, we're not about that. We're trying to change the narrative on it. We're trying to bring everybody together and show that we're here for you. And, unfortunately, I think, as you said, that message got lost on Tuesday, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and there's a reason that those are held in the first place. It's not for attention, neither. It's the fact that there are people of all races, genders that want to be included in this sport. And what I like about being on the Locked On Network is so many of my colleagues come from those different backgrounds and and have different levels of sexual orientations as well, and they get to share their stories, even if I may not understand it neither, or experience it as a straight male as well. And the fact that they get to share those stories as well, and just being a listening ear as well to those people. It's a reason why those nights happen across sports league, not just hockey. But then when you see something that Provorov does, it people might be afraid as well to come out the closet as well. I know Luke Prokop of the Nashville Predators prospect. He was very vocal about saying that we as a society, not just hockey, still have a very long way to go. And it's just for people who might either agree with Ivan Provorov's stance or doesn't really care. I just want to advise you and hope, and you people listening, you can respectfully disagree with me. I'm going to hopefully respectfully disagree for Provorov's stance, but I just hope that we give ourselves an opportunity to just listen more, and just knowing that just because we might have it easier doesn't mean that other people don't have it difficult. And it's not black and white. There's some nuance in this as well. And listen, as a sports official, I've had to send someone to the penalty box before for saying the derogatory slur for gay people, and I've had to do that after like a scuffle, and I said no, that I get to decide that language is not acceptable as well. Thankfully, I've never heard a racial slur, but I have heard the derogatory slur for gay people, and I've had to be like, no, you're not doing this. And it take, like, I know this is a cliche saying, but it takes all of us.
It really does. And as we do move on in society and we start to adapt to different social norms, because let's be honest, let's be real. Over the last like maybe 10, 20 years, we're still been struggling with a lot of it. I mean, still dealing with racism, still dealing with, trying to understand, homosexuals and, the whole transgender community. I think it's a lot of misunderstanding, and just basically quick takes of, what somebody thinks about something without actually having all the information. And unfortunately, that sets the tone for, things like what happened on Tuesday. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with Provorov, because if anything, he was a player that I actually wanted the Panthers to go acquire a few years ago. And to say that, I wouldn't want him on this team, I'm probably taking another look on it right now, just because I personally disagree with that philosophy right now. That he took, using religion as an excuse. And I hope nobody else does that, or we start moving to a society where we don't have to use, in my opinion, and again, we can respectfully disagree, using an archaic way of thinking to absolve ourselves of decisions that we make today. So I'll leave it at that. But I just hope that the NHL can show that they can rise above this, and that they can get this fixed. And like I said, Provorov is more than welcome. He's well within his rights here in the country to express his views, but he's not out of the realm of being judged or being held accountable for decisions. And I think that's what people fail to understand, of why there was such a backlash. And same thing for the other side. If there's something that happens, I fully hope that they get held accountable for their actions and their decisions.
Yeah, and like I said, like I don't want to label Provorov himself a bad person, but I do think there's a little bit of ignorance in his decision as well. And I hope that he can maybe learn a little bit from this, and hopefully because he's not the only one who probably thinks the way he thinks. And I hope that he, along with the rest of the players in the NHL, can think a little bit and say, how can I make other people welcome in this sport and in this community as well for everyone. I know.
And
go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say one thing. I think hockey they need more people to watch the game. They need more people to attend games. I mean, I know attendance has been up over the last decade and everything just because of the original six being more popular, but I don't think the NHL can afford to shut out any communities right now.
Mhm.
They need to include everybody and to spread the game everywhere. And I think that's their mission. So to have a situation like this that happened on Tuesday that kind of goes against what they're trying to do, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. But hopefully that definitely improves and that they can live up to their billing of hockey is for everyone. But
Hmm.
Nick, I want to thank you for joining me on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast to discuss the Florida Panthers win, their 4 power play goals, dealing with some adversity, losing Sergei Bobrovsky and Eric Staal, and of course, talking about the All-Star game and this difficult conversation, talking about just inclusion in hockey. Thank you once again for joining. Tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Armando, as always, thank you for having me on and always allowing us to have this type of discussion about different topics that affect individuals, society, and the game itself. So, Cats fans or NHL fans, hockey fans in general, if you guys want to continue a discussion with this, you guys are more than welcome to give me a follow at Prudentious0 on Twitter. And I would not mind having, friendly debates, things like that, just to find common ground and see, where it is, where everybody is with what happened on Tuesday and everything. So, but Armando, again, thank you for having me on for a victorious Fairbanks Friday.
Absolutely, Nick. And I will see you next week, my friend.
Yes, sir. See you.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects with Heidi Halakash. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Peter Bukowski gives you a podcast 20 minutes or less on the entirety of the sports scene with exclusive guests and the take of the day. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So I'm Armando Velez with Nick Fairbanks, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.